Before you call this coincidence, listen carefully, because this may explain a connection you have never been able to forget. Not the easy one, not the convenient one. I mean, the person who shook something loose inside you the moment they appeared. The one who felt strangely familiar and deeply unsettling at the same time. Most people think the right connection will arrive like peace, like instant comfort, like a perfect answer to a long season of loneliness. But that is not how the deepest connections begin. They begin like a storm moving in quietly. They disturb your patterns. They challenge your ideas. They make you feel seen in places you usually keep hidden. And here is the part nobody talks about. When two people are truly meant to change each other, life often refuses to let them stay the same after meeting. It interrupts. It delays. It separates, not to destroy the bond, but to reveal what the bond is really for. So if there is someone your mind returns to in your quietest moments, stay with me, because what happens next may hit closer than you expect. And by the end, you may understand why some people enter your life like love, but work more like destiny. You may even understand why the strongest connections do not start by bringing two people together. They start by breaking two old versions of them apart. Watch closely, because this one truth changes everything. If two people are truly meant to share something real, there is one pattern that shows up again and again. It is not instant comfort. It is not smooth timing. It is not a perfect beginning. The first thing that usually happens is disruption. Real connection does not always feel soft at the start. It often arrives like a mirror. You meet someone and something inside you reacts before your mind can explain it. You may not even fully like how it feels at first. You may feel restless, nervous, exposed, drawn in and pushed back at the same time. That does not always mean the connection is wrong. Sometimes it means it is reaching deeper than your usual experiences ever could. Most people expect love to feel calming right away. But some of the most meaningful bonds begin with recognition before comfort. Recognition is powerful because it touches hidden parts of you. It lights up your fears, your hopes, your wounds, your old stories, and the parts of yourself you have not fully faced. This is why such connections feel intense. They do not just give affection, they bring awareness. They do not simply make you feel wanted, they make you feel visible. And being truly seen can feel beautiful, but it can also feel dangerous when you are still protecting old pain. So if you ever met someone who made your inner world louder instead of quieter, do not rush to call it chaos. Sometimes that is where the real story begins. This is also why people who seem deeply connected often do not stay together at the beginning. Life creates distance, timing goes wrong, fear steps in, old pain rises. One person may still be carrying heartbreak they never healed. One may fear vulnerability and confuse distance with safety. One may not yet know their own worth, so they accept confusion in the name of love. Sometimes both people are still unfinished, and unfinished people, even with good hearts, can still wound each other deeply. So life says, not yet. It pulls them apart before they can ruin what might have become meaningful. That separation feels cruel when you are living through it. It feels unfair. It feels confusing. But many times it is not punishment. It is preparation. Because if two people come together before they are ready, they do not build a strong bond. They build a painful cycle. They repeat fears. They trigger each other without understanding why. They ask each other to heal wounds neither of them knows how to name. And what could have become honest love turns into pressure, silence, mixed signals, and damage. That is why distance sometimes appears where closeness seemed natural. The pause is not always a rejection of the connection. Sometimes it is protection of its deeper purpose. Keep listening, because this is where most people misunderstand the whole journey. They think separation means the story is over. But sometimes separation is the very thing that reveals what the story was trying to do. When a connection like this breaks apart, the pain is different from ordinary heartbreak. It is not just about missing a person. It feels like losing a piece of direction. You try to move on, and maybe on the outside you do. You go back to work. You answer messages. You smile. You keep life moving. But underneath, something keeps asking questions. Why did this affect me so deeply? Why do I still feel it? Why did it touch something in me that other relationships never reached? That is because some people do not enter your life only to be loved. They enter your life to wake you up. Their presence begins an inner process. Their absence forces it to continue. And this is when the real work starts. You begin seeing patterns you ignored for years. You notice how often you looked for validation instead of peace. You see how much of yourself you gave away just to feel chosen. You recognize the fear behind your attachment, the silence behind your people-pleasing, the loneliness behind your chasing. These realizations are not comfortable, but they are powerful. The pain is not there just to crush you. It is there to expose what has been living in the dark. A meaningful connection does not always create obsession. Often it creates reflection. It makes you examine your life more honestly. It makes you ask deeper questions. Why do I love like this? Why do I accept so little? Why do I fear being left so much that I leave myself first? If this is touching a nerve, stay to the end, because the next part explains why some connections stay alive in your heart long after the contact ends. Even when there is no message, no reunion, no clear answer, something keeps shifting inside you. You become more aware of your standards. You become more honest about what drains you. You start pulling away from shallow attention, empty words, and people who only want access to your softness without offering sincerity in return. Things you once tolerated now feel heavy. Conversations that used to excite you now feel hollow. The same patterns no longer fit because something in you has changed. And many times, that change began the moment that one person entered your life. Not because they were perfect, not because they were supposed to save you, but because they activated a part of your growth that had been waiting for a trigger. This is how deep connections work. They may leave your daily life, but they do not leave you unchanged. They alter the way you see love. They sharpen your sense of self-respect. They raise your standards for both others and yourself. They teach you that real love is not only about closeness. It is also about inner wholeness. Over time, you stop chasing people who cannot meet you emotionally. You stop calling inconsistency passion. You stop treating uncertainty like romance. You stop shrinking just to keep someone interested. And this growth often happens quietly. No one claps for it. No one sees it immediately. But it is real. It is the slow rebuilding of your inner world. And that is why some people cannot simply be replaced by someone new. Not because nobody else is good, but because not everyone reaches the same depth or begins the same transformation inside you. Many people try to replace a connection like this. They meet someone new. They keep busy. They throw themselves into routines, conversations, distractions, and fresh beginnings. Sometimes it even works for a while. Life becomes louder. The ache softens. The days get fuller. But somewhere beneath the surface, there is still a quiet, unfinished feeling. Not always because the new person is wrong. Not always because the new relationship lacks effort. But because the earlier connection did something different. It did not only create attraction. It created awakening. It touched the deeper layers. It challenged the soul, not just the schedule. That is why these bonds do not compete with ordinary chemistry. They exist on a different level. They are not built on excitement alone. They are not sustained by fantasy alone. They are tied to truth, and truth changes you. While two people are apart, life is often teaching both of them different lessons. One learns boundaries. One learns accountability. One learns to stop begging for clarity that never comes. One learns to stop hiding behind silence. One learns self-respect. The other learns emotional courage. One stops chasing. The other stops running. Neither person sees the full picture while it is happening, and that is part of the design. If they could see the whole map too early, they might resist the very lessons they came here to learn. So life keeps the future hidden while growth happens in private. And that hidden work matters more than most people realize. Before anything real can be rebuilt, illusions have to fall. False ideas about love must break. The belief that love should always feel easy. The belief that if someone cares, there will never be confusion. The belief that pain proves depth. The belief that another person is supposed to complete you. These ideas sound romantic, but they quietly damage real connection. They create dependence. They create fear. They make people hold on to suffering and call it destiny. So life slowly strips these illusions away. It does not do it gently every time. Sometimes it happens through silence that forces you to hear your own thoughts. Sometimes through disappointment that exposes what you were settling for. Sometimes through loss that finally shows you where you abandoned yourself. In that lonely space, you begin to see more clearly. You understand where you confused anxiety for passion. You notice where you made someone else responsible for wounds only you could heal. You learn that love is not meant to rescue you from yourself. You learn that no one can fill the places where you have refused to meet your own needs. And when this truth finally lands, something powerful happens. You stop needing the outcome you once begged for. You stop waiting for one message, one return, one apology to make your life feel whole. That is not bitterness. That is freedom. And strangely, this is often the point where life begins moving again. Not because you tried harder, but because you let go of making the connection your only answer. When people who truly changed each other meet again after real inner work, the energy is different. It is quieter, steadier, cleaner. The connection does not need drama to feel alive. There is less fear, less performance, less guessing. Your body often senses the shift before your mind can explain it. There is a calm you did not have before. Not because the bond became magical, but because both people faced parts of themselves they used to avoid. What shows up now is honesty, simple honesty. The kind that does not need games, testing, or emotional confusion to feel intense. The kind that respects silence without using silence as punishment. The kind that can speak clearly without turning vulnerability into weakness. There is more maturity in the pauses, more awareness in the words, more respect for boundaries, more responsibility in actions. It still may not be perfect because real connection is not perfection. It is consciousness. It is choosing truth over ego. It is being willing to meet each other without masks. And when that happens, the reunion does not feel loud. It feels right. But here is the hard truth many people avoid. Even after all that growth, some people still do not return to each other. And that does not mean the connection was fake. It does not mean you imagined it. It does not mean the whole thing was wasted. Some people are meant to stay. Others are meant to transform you and leave. Both kinds can be real. Both kinds can be sacred. And yes, that truth can hurt, but it can also set you free. Not every meaningful connection is here to become a forever relationship. Some are here to end a cycle that has lived inside you for years, maybe even generations. They reveal where love got confused with sacrifice, where attachment got mistaken for safety, where silence was called peace even while your spirit was shrinking. These connections bring hidden pain to the surface so it can finally be healed instead of repeated. Others come to teach self-love. They reflect the places where you settle, overgive, stay quiet, and betray your own needs just to keep someone close. Through them, you begin to see that love should never cost you your dignity, your voice, or your sense of self. Some connections wake up emotional depth. They make you feel again after years of numbness. They remind you that your heart is still capable of care, vulnerability, tenderness, and truth. Others redirect your entire life path. After meeting them, you choose differently. You expect differently. You refuse what you once accepted. You move in a new direction. Their role was never to remain in the same form. Their role was to prepare you for what comes next. That does not make the bond small. It makes it sacred. Sacred things are not always permanent. They are powerful because of what they awaken. And many people ask why destiny feels so harsh before it feels gentle. The answer is simple. Comfort often keeps you trapped in familiar patterns, even the painful ones. Growth rarely begins in comfort. Growth begins when the old way no longer works, and your soul can no longer pretend it does. There is one truth that keeps appearing in these deep connections. If two people are truly meant to share something real, they are often required to grow separately first. They are separated so old fantasies can collapse. They are pushed into distance so their wounds become visible. They are forced to face fear, pride, avoidance, emotional hunger, and all the habits that would have poisoned the relationship if nothing changed. This season is not a punishment for loving too much or not knowing better. It is a refining fire, a sacred pause where life slowly shapes each person into someone more honest and more whole. Here you learn boundaries not as cold walls, but as acts of self-respect. You learn that your worth cannot depend on whether someone chooses you. You learn how to love deeply without disappearing inside another person. You learn that being wanted means very little if you are not also being valued, respected, and met with consistency. You learn that wholeness is not something another person gives you. It is something you build within yourself. And only after this inner work begins does life reveal what comes next. Sometimes the path leads back to reunion. Sometimes it leads to a new direction entirely. But nobody walks away unchanged. That is the point. Something essential shifts. The version of you that entered the connection does not remain the same. And that change is not failure. It is the evidence that the connection carried meaning beyond comfort, beyond timing, beyond easy romance. If you are still here, listen carefully, because this next part is what many hearts need to hear. If you are thinking of someone right now, let this settle gently inside you. You do not have to chase what is real. You do not have to force what is aligned. What is truly meant for you will never require you to live in constant confusion, constant anxiety, or constant self-betrayal. It will not ask you to shrink, to beg, or to abandon your truth just to keep it alive. Real love may ask for courage, it may ask for patience, it may ask for honesty and growth, but it will not ask you to lose yourself. And if that person never returns, that does not erase the meaning of the connection. It was still a teacher. It still shaped you. It still opened your eyes to truths you may not have faced otherwise. It showed you what hurts. It showed you what matters. It showed you what you can no longer accept. In that way, nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the longing, not the confusion, not even the silence. What felt like rejection may have been redirection. What felt like loss may have been alignment. What felt like an ending may have been the doorway to a deeper relationship with yourself. And sometimes that is the gift hidden inside the pain. Not getting back what you lost, but becoming someone who no longer loses themselves in the search for love. That is not a small lesson. That is life-changing. And once you learn it, you do not love the same way again. You love with more truth, more clarity, more peace, more self-respect. So here is the deeper truth. The strongest connections are not about possession. They are not about guarantees. They are not even always about staying. They are about transformation. They enter at the exact moment you are ready, or at the exact moment life decides it is time to make you ready. They disturb your comfort to expose your blind spots. They challenge your false beliefs to make room for better ones. They may leave pain behind, but they also leave wisdom, depth, and a clearer understanding of what love is and what it is not. Nothing in a connection like this is meaningless. No heartbreak is empty. No longing is random. No disruption comes without purpose. Even when life does not explain itself right away, it is still shaping something in you. So be patient with what you do not understand yet. Trust what your growth is teaching you. And remember this. If two people are truly meant to come together in a real and healthy way, life will often separate them long enough for each of them to become someone capable of holding that love without fear, without illusion, and without losing themselves in the process. And if they never come back together, the connection may still have fulfilled its purpose in full. Because the deepest destiny is not always about ending up with one person. Sometimes it is about finally ending up with yourself. If this spoke to a place you rarely put into words, hold on to it. Sit with it. Let it work on you. Because some messages do not just comfort the heart, they wake it up.